Public comment. Okay, is there a motion for the approval of minutes of 11 September 2023?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, reports and updates, superintendent.
Happy October, everybody. Did anyone not get the infamous MDI 3 sports season pass at the last meeting? Well, if you did not get one, I will pass these around.
On the honor system.
On the honor system.
I need one. Yeah, yeah.
Those are like a $80 value, so you could go.
eBay.
Black.
Yeah.
So
Hey, how are you?
thank you very much.
Good, how are you? Yeah.
And looking at our enrollments overall, this past week, we've had a total of 1,414 students within the district, and that's +3 from when we reported in September. So I think as you hear from your principals, that number fluctuates throughout the year. District staffing, I just wanted to report that we continue to have needs in staffing, particularly in special education. In terms of regular sort of teaching staff, we also have a long-term sub position that's open in one of our schools. Technology, long-term sub in technology, GP, math interventionists, speech and language in a couple schools, and of course, ed techs, bus drivers, some custodians. Those positions are getting filled, but we're just sort of looking, and also some school admin assistant positions. So, if you were to go to the website, you would still see that we have some needs. We did have a job fair on the 11th here that was specifically oriented towards ed techs, and we had 2 people show up. And one person who's sort of still thinking about it, and another person who has applied and gave information, so they're sort of working through the process. So that brought an individual, and we tried to highlight within a little presentation that we did, sort of the what are the benefits of being in ed tech, and particularly in terms of working in our schools, to try to entice people who are shoulder seasoned people and are looking something, or who are parents, and the fact that you can have the same schedule as your children, the educational opportunities that are provided, and the vacations that are there. So we did our best to sell it, and we'll probably do another series again and put it out there. I think even if you get one person, it's worthwhile. And the business office and the rest of us that were there just had a great time chatting. So it was really good, and particularly to talk about that role and the benefits that it has. Some school highlights and visits. I'll try to share things every month of some of my time at schools or when I'm at meetings. I wanted to highlight that if you didn't know, Heather Webster, the principal at Connors Emerson, now has her PhD, so Dr. Webster. So congratulations to her at Fort Yvonne Harbor. She's out bringing her child to colleges right now, so she's not here. But after taking a STEM on PhD, transfers over. I don't think so. So it's awesome that opportunity for all of our staff to be able to continue their education is really important. On Cranberry Island, they had their open house and they did a barbecue. So they had family and friends come and provided hot dogs and fruits to come visit the school and see what the kids were up to for their open house. So that was a sort of interesting twist on how we do it. And then at Frenchboro early on, this year, they were starting some talk in science about how you care for the earth. And one of the students and the teacher there, Laura Wenger, sent me the note of a question. Mrs. Wenger, what day are we going to clean up the earth? And she was reviewing their schedule. So
That's cute.
So we got some people on Frenchboro who are gonna help us clean up the earth once we know that date. In Mount Desert, Tom Spear, who is from 10th Gate Center for Yoga and Meditation, will be offering some weekly yoga and guided practice to staff to reduce stress. It's if they want to come and make it. Tom and I are in conversations about sharing that opportunity with some of the other schools, but he's sort of starting there, and he's new to the island and came to us from Rhode Island where he did some similar work. So he and I will be speaking more about how that can work in some other schools to provide some opportunities for teachers. At the high school, I had the opportunity to watch a couple boys soccer games, and one of those was the Ellsworth senior night, which is kind of bittersweet for me because my stepson plays as a senior on Ellsworth and plays on that team, and they were really hoping to win to sort of boost their points. But it was a tie. It was a sort of a really a great game, and the NDI boys that they were leaving had music booming and all that. It was great. But the really neat thing is a lot of those kids had played when they were younger on the Acadia fire team, so it was kind of cool to see them interact when they had big hits. They picked somebody up and had little conversations and pats on the shoulders. So it was a really good game. And I've been able to see a girls volleyball game one night when I was here, so it was nice to be able to watch some of the teams play. At Pematic, in the month of October, they're focusing on respect in their house, and they have a monthly meeting where they honor kids that sort of represent the house in a variety of ways. And this month they're really focusing on respect, and it's a Red Ribbon Week there where it's a focus on be kind to your mind. It's about awareness around drug use and what the impacts are on your brain. At Swans, little Mimi, he wrote a letter to the state on the ferry. As you know, Swans students have been getting here really early, and so she wrote a letter to the state about changing the time and came up with something. So Swan students will be I don't know the exact time, and she sent out information to families about that ability to be able to come to school a little bit later and take advantage of the later start time and not have to get here so early. So good on Mimi. Tremont has recently, multiple staff has gone to state-sponsored professional development called the Regulated Classroom, and it's a train-the-trainer model. We have several schools that are sending teachers that basically looks at the brain science and how you sort of fit into that overall model of the climate of your classroom, and a real understanding of how brain science, having an understanding of that might help you better create a regulated classroom, because you have a better sense of how to either, if you need to lift kids up, we provide a little motivation, or if they're just regulated, how to sort of bring them down. And so it'll be interesting to start utilizing that. And with the train-the-trainer models, then staff here can go out and train staff here. Trenton has launched their PBIS, which is the Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. And they're starting small, and they're focusing on hallways and utilizing the house, respect, responsibility, and perseverance and safety in the hallways. And that's sort of really identifying what are the behaviors that you should see, explicitly teaching them. And they're doing it on a very small scale to be able to build that across. And a couple of other schools are utilizing PBIS. So that's some of the things that are happening across the district, so people sort of get a flavor of what's going on. HCTC, I told you last month that I would share numbers. The high school's participation still is very strong. In the morning, we have 26 kids that are going over. In the afternoon, there are 20, so a total of 46 students. We're up there, with some of the other schools that send kids. And the greatest participation rate overall for all the schools is in the area of health, the welding program, biomed, and culinary. Those are the top where you see most of the students within the programs. And school health, I just wanted to share that, I do meet monthly with the nurses. We're going to be focusing on the wellness policy and developing that committee to then share out, what best practices would be, looking at attendance, because, that's a big deal, and thinking about how do you manage if your child has a snuffly nose. In the past, we would say, stay home. And the Association of Physicians has shared a document that we looked at, that we'll be looking at our next meeting to then sort of go out, that sort of talks about that, fine line as we come post-pandemic. And then talking about PD for them. In terms of sort of budget updates, we have 2 schools that have already reviewed their preliminaries, and that is Connors Emerson. Actually, once it was only just one school, Connors Emerson, and then we'll be doing that this afternoon. And then I wanted to share just quick legislative updates, and then I'm going to be sending you a link to a document that we've created here for a number of years that basically sort of breaks down what were some of the laws that were passed, summary of what the law says, why it matters, and then sort of what needs to be done. And it's good to just have a sense of sort of what's coming down the pike. And I wanted to highlight in particular the fact that there's a law now that requires school units to regularly train and students in the use of naloxone. It's the naloxone hydrochloride nasal spray that if somebody is in distress because of overdose, you could do that. The DOE is going to create guidelines for schools, and I'll share those as soon as they are available, and we'll work with those and with the high school. Also, the fact that the legislature broadened the scope of social workers and their function, that they can now diagnose organic mental illness and no longer need to seek physicians' opinions in forming those. And so that's something that now, and some of our schools have licensed clinical social workers to be able to do that. And we talked with the A-team about making sure that those roles are identified, and the DOE shared some guidance, and the A-team has seen those. Also, again, what was in the legislature is they're working on a study about best practices for FAPE, free and appropriate public education, for students 3 to 6 who need special education, and that's the CDS services. And a study will be presented to the legislature in February, and then we will have some guidance on that as more and more pre-Ks are in our schools. As you can tell, it's pretty long. I just wanted to highlight the bigger ones for you. Also, the DOE has done some easing on issuing certificates to retired teachers as a way of easing staffing shortages. We do have a variety of retired teachers who have come back and are serving in roles in our schools in a variety of ways, whether that's as coaching or helping back in the classroom. For new schools, since Eric's going to be talking a little bit about school buses, there is a new law and school buses in terms of that they have to have technology to prevent school doors from closing on a person's limb. So that's all in place. And there is another stakeholder group. There's a bunch of laws that were put forth in front of the legislature around time for recess and lunch and setting what those times would be. All of those and school start times and all those were eventually put into one bill that turned into a study. And so there is a study group that is currently working on a report that will be out in January that will take a look at those issues. There is also a study going on best practices for lockdown drills, and that report will be out in January as well. So the legislature will be very busy. And so those are the biggest pieces that sort of came out that I thought you all should be aware of. But you will get a link to that spreadsheet that we use that sort of highlights those, all of the laws. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me. A lot of the ones that have policy impacts, you've sort of acted on them, and the policy committee acts on those when there are law changes. That's my report.
Are there questions for Mike?
Just in terms of the staffing update you gave, I know you said there's lots of openings, but do we have any, I know we tried a job fair, but do we have any other kind of game plans or game plans or anything in the works to try to help kind of fill slots here and there?
Right now, we just figured out how there was an AOS Facebook site. And we didn't know who ran that. It started during the pandemic. It was someone in the office who left, but now we have control of that. And so that will help us put, because on the job sites for Hancock County, so we'll be able to put more of our information up on those sites. And within the next week, we're gonna, I'm gonna take a look at where we are. I think in terms of ed techs, I think we're actually pretty good right now. And it's some of these incidental ones that we'll have to take a look at. And a lot of them, whether it's special ed teachers or speech pathologists, is something that most likely people won't want to leave a current position, and it's something that we'll have to wait until the springtime. And we have plans for all of those where there are missing positions. We have all of those plans set to be able to support students as needed.
For quite a few years, we've heard that the state is just about to mandate pre-K. Like, is that really going to
Not
happen?
yet.
I mean, is it like, I'm just curious, like where, as we all, we're thinking about it and try, Bar Harbor adding that space, but is it really gonna happen?
They are encouraging a certain percentage. And so I forget what this year is. So they're pushing a certain percentage that by 2028 or something, I can look, but the legislature is kind of pushing to have more and more pre-Ks in schools, but they haven't set
It's
yet.
not a law yet.
Correct. Where it has to happen by X.
I guess just to follow up, how many schools in the AOS don't have a pre-K? Just,
Right now, just Connors and
oh, okay.
and our island schools also do not.
Yeah, the outer
the
islands, yeah.
islands
Okay.
do not have official pre-Ks.
Okay.
I have one other question about the Narcan. How much time, I can probably look this up, but how much time, like when you notice somebody's wavering or whatever, and you would need it, where is it gonna be and how much time you have to get it to them? Is it gonna be like
Those will be some of the.
stations all
Those will be some of the rules that we hope to get from the DOE and then my conversations from with the nurses. Right now there's EpiPens in certain places, and of course you have the defibrillator that's near where there's large crowds. So that's a possibility. Then of course, places like the Blue Hill Fair, they're asking for individuals to have those, and there was a lot of that quick training. So, but we'll have more information about that as it comes down from the DOE, but most likely some of that will happen in health classes in terms of how the law was sort of written.
Anyone else? Okay, directors of teaching and learning. Let's see, one director. of teaching and
Yes,
learning.
Rhonda is not feeling very well today, so just me. First, I just want to thank you for moving the calendar, because tomorrow is our 7th grade island-wide read. This is the book we're reading, Readings from Witness Protection. Just pass it around. The teachers have some voice in what the book is, and they opted for a lighthearted, funny book this year, which I thought was good. And so I don't know if you have any kids in here in 7th grade, but so far it's getting pretty good
Yeah,
reviews.
she liked it.
And Jake Burt, the author, is gonna be at Camp Beach Cliff tomorrow, so they'll get signed copies and we get to ask the author questions, and it's gonna be a fun day, so thank you again. And I should mention, Island readers and writers help organize this day, so it's a pretty special event that they sponsor. Okay, now, speaking of reading, let's look at our reading data. We struggled a little bit on how to best present the data, because the data is now using different measures. So we've always been using the cut scores that NWA puts out, and we're going to reference a little bit of it, but the measures that the state has organized are a little different. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go into it, but so just a little bit about the NWA. the state of Maine contracted with them to create their Maine state test. So it is supposed to have all the accessibility and information that NWA has always provided for us. And we've liked it. We've used it for well over 10 years now because it gives us enough information on a student that's actionable, that can help us actually respond to a student, gives us information, right? And so the people throughout the state like the test. The Maine through year though is a little different though, because it's measuring you against standards and they want to see where you are at grade level. So NWA has always been an adaptive test. So if you're at the 3rd grade level in your 9th grade, you're getting 3rd grade questions, right? Once you do the through year, if that's the main test, they're only going up 1 or below 1 grade level. So that it is somewhat adaptive, but not that adaptive. So we're not exactly sure how that's going to play out a little bit in terms of our understanding of the data. This is and I should add, this is preliminary data. It hasn't been scrubbed out yet of all students who are disqualified. So if you didn't take it in the fall, you don't get to count in the data because you have to take the fall and the spring. But it's October and our schools come to a screeching halt for testing. And I thought it was important that we just time up a lot of our reports, you know, and really communicate why we do this and why it's important. So, and we don't have a lot of kids that we expect will be removed other than the high school. And I did not include the high school basically in all of this data. And I did work with Joe to kind of go over her talking points for you on Monday to make sure we were on the same page. So for those of you who were here, and hopefully all of you were here, you know, there's been a myriad of challenges with getting good data at the high school. So they're pretty much removed from this. So I think this is pretty accurate. And if there's any grade changes, I would certainly let you know. So we wanted to time this up and inform you. So anyways, according to the state, our students are doing well. I will share with you though, the NWA measures are a little more stringent. So when you look at the kind of the old data measures that we had, they're a little inflated at the state. So, you know, I just want to acknowledge that. So on the one hand, I want to celebrate, hey, we're doing pretty good. Most of our schools have met expectations and they're a little inflated in terms of the state benchmarks. And we're still waiting for more training from the state on what exactly that means. Our students are testing this month, and I do want to acknowledge some of our teachers are frustrated because they can't get the data immediately, which is what they want, so they can be actionable, right? And the state is going to send them and make them public after the 1st. So there is a little bit of a delay if you're hearing something like that. We can kind of in a very complicated way get the data, but it's not easy for the teacher. So that's something we're hoping will improve. But I guess my long-winded explanation here is trying to say this hasn't been easy transitioning with the state control over the NWA. And so deciding how to present this data was a little challenging for us too. For example, they don't give us the growth data. We had to calculate this by hand for you. So we wanted you to know, okay, of our kids, you know, because that really is what matters to us most. Okay, you might be behind your peers, but are you showing growth and your projected growth? And, you know, 42% of our students met their reading growth target. In comparison, last year, 46 did. I should have put that in there, but anyway, so we dipped there. And then we stayed the same at 50 in terms of meeting the math growth target. So we have some work to do, but let's take a look at the charts here. Okay, so this is again according to state in terms of reading. We didn't organize this by school. You should be getting presentations from your building principals about how your students did in their own school. This is basically percentage of all schools combined. So to kind of scrub school names out of it. So overall, we look pretty good in terms of meeting state expectations in reading, but again, only 42% of our students met their reading growth target. We're not pleased with that data. I want to emphasize that we have been focusing on reading instruction, particularly this year. We kicked off the year with really re-messaging the importance of the science of reading. We have an instructional coach, Lindsay Eisnagel, who is working with all new teachers and getting them up to speed with coaching new teachers into how to support teachers with the science of reading in the early grades. And then we have Becky Lehman working with new teachers primarily, but open to, both are open to more experienced folks too, but we're prioritizing new teachers because we only have so many instructional coaches to support with science of reading instruction in both middle school and high school. We also have launched several new curriculums, which we're continuing to support, but it takes time to get to that place that we want to be. But it has been a concerted effort. Jessica, you had a question about that?
So no school was above and no school was well below either.
Correct.
Yes, okay,
This is whole school,
whole school.
yeah, identification, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So math, our data is not as great. And so even though 50%, we had a higher number in terms of who met their growth, that might be attributed with the above. We see that a little bit in there. But this is really the first time we see a lot of yellow and red. So what have we been doing with that? Well, this is our second year working with Kate St. Dennis as our instructional coach for math, and she has been working. We doubled her hours, by the way, from last year to this year, and we doubled the literacy hours too, as well. Mainly focusing on new teachers, but not limited to. And she is leading the math common study this year in middle school, so she's kind of working with them to support math instruction. She just took some. Not everybody could get a sub to go to the math conference. It's a real challenge, right? We have a regional, conference, and we can't send everybody. The high school was able to send their team. We sent representatives from the middle school team, and they're going to come back and confer and share what they've learned. And one interesting thing they've learned is you really should have your best math teacher in sixth grade. So that's where the divergence happens for a lot of kids in their trajectory with math instruction. But we've also been working and contracting with the All Learners Network and the Math Workshop model. That's ongoing work. We've had some schools adopt a new curriculum, and it takes time to, Eureka, it takes time to learn how to implement that. And we do have some math turnover, right? That's always one of our subject areas that struggles the most in terms of keeping and retaining, attracting math teachers. So it tends to be just one of those greater challenges that we face, but we are aware of it and are, continuing to try to support it best we can. All right, this is where I did include the high school data. This is just percentage of students who were at or above expectations, and I just wanted to compare it to the state. So in terms of all test takers, we do outperform, the state average. And just to give you a little bit of a comparison, but it is a little apples to oranges. I just kind of have in the note, if you looked at like what NWEA, not the through year, not the state test measure, but what they would say is at or meeting, we were roughly at 76 in reading and 72 in math, and we're kind of in that ballpark, but again, different measures. I just wanted to give you a little something for comparison. And then this is actually a screenshot from NWEA. The state has also put this out. This is basically taking this year's trend relative to the past few years' trend prior to COVID to show that nationwide we're seeing these type. This is supposed to show average gains, as you can see, we're below the norms. Yeah. So the state hasn't put out a comparable measure yet for Maine, but they have messaged that they see a similar trend. So I just wanted to, share this, that we may not be making the gains we were hoping, but we're not seeing this degree of losses. So there is some reason to celebrate that. And that's the COVID slide that we've been talking about. And then, we've been just looking at, how students by grade level are performing by gender. And then targeted groups. And see, we're actually, I was surprised our economic disadvantage wasn't lower, but so that's good news to me. And our special ed is lower, which isn't as surprising, but it is something we want to increase and support, because the idea of special education isn't that you can't access the material, it's that with support, you will access the material. So it does give us a point of reflection to say, how can we do a little better with this? And really our hope is through the MTSS model to be really thinking more strategically about how we're supporting students. We talked about multi-tiered systems of support. It really is about looking at data, thinking like a system and being strategic, and really working as a team. So that's kind of a new system we're honing right now. And that's another big part of this improvement plan. Questions?
Lily?
Yeah.
Do you know what, like, a few years prior to COVID, what, were we kind of in the same place, or were we a little higher, were we a little low, like, where were we?
We were higher and if you remember when we came back, we gave a nice presentation saying, don't worry, we're still making growth.
Yeah.
And I had these really cool screenshots.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, that after that, it was like, I don't know, then it started to just kind of do that. So, we're seeing it now.
So
There was a lot, that was a hopeful presentation that first year, and because we were on that upward trajectory, but now we're seeing it. Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
this is my unprofessional opinion, but
Yeah.
I feel like there's no reason to believe we won't get back there. That we're
Oh.
just working
Yes,
through this crazy time with nothing for,
yes.
so.
And what these are also, they're normed against old measures and every 5 years, the measures get changed. They're gonna have to adjust them because we're all different now. And so we're gonna have to say, well, what does third grade mean now? And probably adjust those measures.
And then again, when you have a whole nother problem.
Exactly. Every 5 years, they'll readjust what does it look like now? Yes.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, Mike is going to, we've been asked to look at how the AOS and through its member schools responds to bias incidents. So Mike is going to, presentation for us.
So as you recall, when our last, Jessica said, public comment, someone had asked what that looks like. So I put together sort of a list of the things that we do, both on the sort of the proactive side, some of the policies that principals have as sort of the skeleton that they're able to hang, how they deal with these incidences, and some of the things that we're looking forward to continue on doing. So in terms of policies and practices that support positive student behavior, because that's the whole point. You want to make it so that we're not seeing these incidences. So what are the things that we're trying to do as a system in creating positive classroom cultures through practices that are happening? And so one of those things that you've heard about is the responsive classroom, and we're having that specific training coming up in March in terms of how you create a classroom environment and interact in ways that support a healthy culture. Also, as I said earlier, the regulated classroom and PBIS, the positive behavior interventions and supports. And most of our schools that are utilizing that are utilizing the hows and talking about, well, what does respect look like? What does responsible, and framing that way. We have the advisory programs, the anti-racism task force, the hows that are sort of built into the information that you get about students, through the report card. And then, providing the ongoing training and support. So the yearly review for staff and what goes out in the handbooks on the harassment policies. We've recently had some staff trainings around bias and microaggressions, and kind of rolled out this year with the help of the anti-racism task force, a little video that kind of has people sort of talking about the experience of microaggressions, and the task force actually sort of helped me create little stems to provide for teachers, and that'll be going out before November. We have some, again, in ongoing training, additional reviews around responding to microaggressions, and that's sort of a change in some of the trainings that you're supposed to get every year from staff. And then we have classroom guidance classes and support through some of those mental health providers that are within our schools and sort of talking about, how we treat people. And then that basic skeleton, we have sort of the behavioral code of conduct, the ideas of fairness, compassion, honesty, responsibility, respect, and courtesy that we try to uphold in our system. Some of the policies, again, is that JIC, which is the Student Code of Conduct, and what that means. And in policy right now, it kind of identifies what it looks like for students in those areas and also for adults, and the idea that it contributes to a positive, diverse, and safe learning environment. We have the bullying policy that can address these issues, JICK. And the definition of bullying is written, oral, or electronic expression or a physical act or gesture that a reasonable person would expect to have the effect of physical or property harm or fear of harm, the creation of an intimidating or hostile educational environment that interferes with someone's learning, or is based on someone's actual or perceived characteristics identified in the main Human Rights Act, which might be religion, race, and those factors that sort of play in there. And one of the things around bullying that oftentimes early on, and in some states this is true, but not in the state of Maine, where you needed to have multiple incidences to call it bullying. Well, that's not true in Maine state law. There could be a single act that you can act on. And then some of the responses within the policy on bullying would be as simple as meeting with students and parents. There might be a reflective activity to get an understanding of what happened. Mediation when appropriate, and the mediation requires both parties to be willing to do that. There might be counseling or anger management. There could be restorative practices involved, community service, and of course you have detention, suspension, expulsion, or referral, and a referral to the state if a case is substantiated. So within bullying, if you have a substantiated case, so then there are places in state reporting where we have to report, incidences of bullying that happens within our school. Acts could also be violations of Title IX, and if they are in the process, when a principal is going through that process of investigating, it gets shifted over to a Title IX issue if that's what it is. We also have our discrimination and harassment policies, ACAA. And discrimination includes sort of disparities in access to educational programs. So that could be something that might be happening, within the school in terms of access to programs and harassment happening that way, or discrimination, or the application of discipline. It also includes teasing, joking, using racial slurs or epithets, as well as threats of violence based on a protected category. And threats of violence can be a criminal violation under Maine's hate crime laws. And again, our policies sort of, talk about what might some of those responses be in terms of whatever the level of harassment was as you went through the investigation. And that could be through additional education. It could be through service learning. It might be restorative justice or restitution. Could be adjustments in schedules that might come out of a restorative piece where people are to be interacting, or a no contact order, depending on the severity. It might be suspension or expulsion. And then, of course, in substantiated cases of harassment, those do get uploaded to the state in terms of if they're substantiated. And then, the other areas within policy, look on is there's the student discipline policies, and that really talks about that good discipline allows schools to discharge their primary responsibility to educate students. That's our primary responsibility, and promote good citizenship and ethical behavior. And it talks about our policy sort of focus on discipline should emphasize positive reinforcement for appropriate behavior. So those schools that are starting to look at PBIS or awarding students for positive behavior at their monthly meetings, that's sort of part of that, as well as having appropriate consequences for misbehavior. That there are clear expectations that are communicated. Any of the work with responsive classroom or PBIS is that idea of setting those expectations early and identifying them often and talking about them and not just doing it once. And that consequences should be proportioned to the offense, fair and consistently enforced. And that parents should be actively involved in that process when you're going through it. So when there are incidences that principals are contacting parents about what might be appropriate consequences for what they uncovered. And consequences, and these are things listed in the parent handbook and tools that teachers and administrators have, are that formal talk with a teacher, depending on instances. It could be suspension or removal from extracurriculars. There could be issues of some learning happening during lunch and recess. There is, if you look down, responses for students in grade 5 below. By law, you can't suspend a student in grade 5 or below. And you cannot withhold recess unless there is a restorative intervention. Then you take away the recess.
I think that it occurs during the recess.
Yes,
Right?
and you can do that. Yep. And so, that, and just as an aside, you can suspend a student or expel them, but it has to be for a violent act in breaking the gun laws that if you bring them to school or it was a credible threat, then you can suspend them. But you can't suspend a student grade 5 or below for more than 3 days. If they met the criteria, it can't be more than 3 days. Formal talk with the principal, going back after that, detentions, conflict resolution. The high school has a very robust and continually growing restorative board, and the hearing committee is where a lot of that happens. And I know that there's some of our middle schools are exploring that as well and taking that practice down in school suspensions and out of school suspensions. And sort of moving forward, I think we are continually evolving on how we support students and staff around these issues and bringing training. I think one of the things that we're recognizing is sort of the regular application of these trainings and somehow weaving that into our yearly training. I think you've heard before that, in our PD, we have sort of limited PD days, and there's a lot of things we would like to fit in, but I think more and more as we think about it, there might be some options that are always there for teachers to work on when you're talking about staff, and the same thing in working with students. We're sort of in the early stages of implementing that system-wide approach around responsive classroom, PBIS, and restorative practices, district-wide. That we continue to take advantage of any state-supported training. The regulated classroom is just the most recent one, where they provided that statewide, and schools across the state took advantage of that because those trainings filled up really quickly. Continued collaboration with the Anti-Racism Task Force and looking at ways to best support students and teachers, and identifying and maintaining, like I said earlier, some of those regular staff in student trainings and how to do that on a more regular basis, because we know that these incidences could be very damaging to students or staff if they occur. So it's really important to make sure that's held up front.
Other questions?
Who makes up the restorative practices board that they?
At the high school?
Yeah,
Students, Matt can answer more specifically.
Yeah, it's a mixture of students and adults. People have to apply.
Okay.
And then be kind of endorsed by their peers, both the adults and the students. And then they go through, once they get chosen, before they can sit in participate in a case, they go through, there's like 9 or 10 different trainings. They don't have to do all of them, but you have like, some people are trained in incidents of racism, some people are trained in academic honesty, some people are trained in other stuff. Tired, I'm sorry. Yeah, but I think there are 9 areas, and we bring people in from the outside to do these trainings for us. And also we work in consultation with Downey's Restorative Justice to help the students and the staff who are involved to continue to build their skills. We saw actually a pretty big increase in both students and adults who wanted to be a part of it this year after the successes we had last year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, the organization planning committee update.
I wanted to share that, as part of the process, as they were forming the committee, we had stated that there would be a teacher representative, and they chose somebody, and Cindy Lambert is going to be that person on the board. The local committee met just the other day to talk about meeting with your municipal members to talk about who might that second member be, so that we can hopefully start meeting in November. And I was actually meeting with our tech people today to get the part of the website that folks can go to. So you'll be able to, when you go to the AOS website, on the right side, the last bold menu item will be AOS organization, and it will have materials that we've created up to date for people to look at. And so Lou and I met today, and so by next week, we should have something that we can sort of, I'll be able to point out so people can start looking at some of the documents that are there. Hopefully in November, we'll have our first meeting of the RPC. That's my hope.
Any questions?
Yeah, can we just get like an estimated timeline on like, if everything goes well and everybody's on board, what kind of, are we talking 5, 10 years down the line, sooner? What's our projected timeline?
Sooner. I would hope for a vote in the fall, a referendum vote.
Okay.
Not this fall, but
Yeah, no. I feel like this falls over. But
and then depending on the plan, it could be staged. So there might be aspects of reorganization that happen first, and then might be increased rather than it happening all at
Like,
once.
let's assume it passes, it probably is 5 years in full implementation.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
okay.
It's not good. Even if everything goes great and we vote on it in the fall, nothing's going to like suddenly
Right.
shift in a second.
Right.
Everything will be paced out, give people time to adapt.
Yeah. And is that like estimated timeline, all the ins and outs, would that be on that website that's
That
being
will
created?
be- Yep,
Or is it already there?
It's not there yet, but it
Would be there in November.
Yeah.
Ish.
ish.
I
Well,
like
the
the ish.
website should be there by next week.
Okay,
And then as the planning committee creates documents and works, so then that information will go on there. There might be meeting minutes, letters to the editors. We
okay,
want to make sure that it's just information. that people
Announcements
can go
about
to,
forums.
announcements about
Yeah.
forums.
a place for
Yep.
people to send questions to.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, transportation update. Are you ready, Eric?
Ready? Ready? Everybody, thank you for having me come. Last time I came was actually in April of 2022, when I first started this whole project. Made a lot of
Can
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
speak up slightly?
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'll continue on, but I'll speak loud.
I feel your pain.
All right, we're using TransFinder, which is a software package that's from the state, that's free. That we're using in these 3 products here called Route Finder Plus, Trip Finder, and Stop Finder. And the 3 products we're using right now for this school, for the district. So Route Finder Plus is the one that we get all the data from Power School, whatever is put in there comes over across to us on this software. We design bus routes, give printouts for routes for any, mostly for when the school gets ready to sent out to the newspapers. We also give it for the bus drivers if they need it. We also give it to the principals, some that require it, and in different areas. This is very helpful for the sub drivers. It shows on here where we can improve the routes, where all the buses go, and where we're eventually going to be able to schedule stuff in the beginning of the school, like we're saying. We're also going to consolidate with this area here. We want to consolidate the school routes for the high school. This is something where I always say we want to cross the borders. We want to be able to move students or have students drive on a Bar Harbor bus that's actually maybe in Northeast or Southwest or Tremont. So we want to do that because just for the high school, because we see a lot of overlapping. Where they're driving by, you might have 4 buses that go by a student that could pick them up. And actually, you know, you're just standing there waiting for the 5th bus to come by and pick them up.
Maybe you're gonna get to it. I was just gonna ask, what's the barrier to that? Because I thought we were gonna do that like a long time ago.
We were gonna do that a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, sometime. Like,
It's been what, a little over a year between learning the software and between trying to figure out how the routes all to go together and also getting input from the drivers and stuff like that. So that was a lot of stuff that we had to get together. These are 2 forms that reports that we can do. One on the right is what we usually give to the drivers to know which student they're picking up and what address they're picking them up at. The other one actually, the one to the left actually gives you directions and tells you to go down the road like a GPS road map. But as I learned from the drivers, they will drive down and say, I come to this oak tree on the right-hand side and stuff like that, or a blue mailbox. So it doesn't really help the driver, but the ones that usually do the routes, but it will help the sub driver. We also have these reports now. There's going to be another report coming out that actually would be helpful, I believe, for some principals that were requesting it, that you have the phone number next to the student's name. So this way, if you need to contact them from the office, which would be very helpful. In this software, we're able to keep track of medical exams, fingerprinting, driver's license, and any additional drug testing that has to be done for the driver. We also get an inventory for the vehicles, so we know which vehicles from all the district. We keep track of some information, but we need to get more information. I would like to keep track of like from the whole. Right now, we do mostly at the high school level because we don't have anybody at the high school that monitors them. We have 2 drivers that are for the district, and that's it. And the rest are all usually sub drivers, or the other portions of the district will borrow the high school buses. We also have what I call Trip Finder, which could be go out to the whole district. So if you do have trips and you want to keep it organized, this software helps. We are using it quite a bit at the high school level because the way it's run right now, it is, the last line there says less paper handling. But the way it's done now is the teacher gets a piece of paper from the teacher, sends it to Mary, and then from Mary it goes to Matt. Then from Matt, it goes back to Mary, and Mary scans it in and he emails it to me, then I print it out, and then I turn around and sign the bus driver, and then the bus driver, and then send it back to email, scan it back in, send it to the bus driver and whoever else is involved in it. So this way here is strictly, you put it in there, and then I know when it comes in, and then when it comes in and it's approved, we just schedule the bus driver from there, and then we send it to them. And that's done with this document here, which will tell them where they're going, what address, and the time that they're gonna be there. And we also are able to assign a bus so that they know, especially when they come to the high school, which bus they're taking. So they know exactly what's happening. Okay, we're gonna, radios. There is no two-way radios on the high school buses right now. And the elementary school has two-way radios, but they cannot communicate to some of the schools. And which is pretty, I find it's, if there's an incident, it's hard to communicate. And remember that even though you have a school bus, let's say Tremont, it needs to reach the high school, they can't reach the high school right now. Even though they have a two-way radio on it. We're scheduled in November to implement these new radios into the school and into the buses. Okay. Bar Harbor is, police department has been involved with this. They've been helping us get the repeaters and the antennas and stuff to be able to go. So we can get it all on the whole island. And that's what it. Cameras, we put cameras on the buses finally. And I've been seeing lately, I've been getting requests, quite a few, on certain instances that are happening on the buses. And also the cameras, we've been getting a lot of drive-bys. Almost once a day, we get a drive-by, which is, didn't realize it was happening that much, but it is. Yep. And we see some of them, what they do is they go into the breakdown lane, so you can't get a good picture of their license plate, which is pretty tricky. Okay, the high school for electric buses, the high school has two new e-buses. Pematic has one new e-bus. The high school, the e-buses are now, they actually doing routes. Okay, they're used every day for routes. They do a Hancock route, which is our furthest, longest route, and HCPC. And then they do, Pematic is doing the elementary and the high school. We are in the process of getting two new electric buses for Tremont. So hopefully we will get that information. We did all the paperwork, all the stuff that we needed to have done. Hopefully we're going to get that information and get approval by December. The 2013 bus that Pematic has is going to be donated to Trenton at this time. Okay, because anything from 2013 and above, you can keep. Anything below, you have to demolish it. You actually have to put a 2 or 4 inch hole through the block.
Yeah.
You have to totally, and break the axle and because they don't, because they feel that these are pollution type vehicles that they don't want them on the road. Okay, yep,
Kill one and leave them on the side of the road.
yeah. The district sub driver that we have. The district sub driver has been extremely crucial to the whole district. He monitors the field trips that we have. He also has been any route out there in the whole district he's been on. He's been also filling in for anybody, whether they've been sick, doctor's appointments, vacations, whatever it might be. He's been critical. He's in his call, he's on the spot. We need to have it done. He's learning this software too with me, just as a fill-in. He also has to do different trips, like not only your routes, but similar things like if we have a broken bus that's available that needs to get back to anyone in the district, he's there to help them get it back. He's on call. I mean, he gets calls like I do by 4 o'clock in the morning because somebody's sick and he has to go out. Now, again, like I was saying, the high school never had anybody to take our monitor because what happens is we'll take a high school bus out and don't get back sometimes midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Don't have time to clean the buses. So he monitors the cleaning the buses, inspects the buses, and any supplies it needs, and checks out for routes that's required. And that's pretty much his schedule down below on that county. Okay. He is also going to go for, he went to a class about a month ago for training to be an instructor. Okay, he's filing paperwork right now, teach at the high school. He's also filing a license, instruction. Driving dynamics, he's gotta go for training. Don't know what that is, but that's what he's gotta go for. He's also gotta do first aid training. Right now, I wanna say that there's where I've been sending everybody right now, it's in the Washington County. That instructor right now, between CDL license and bus drivers, has over 200 people on the waiting list. We have 6. So if we get him on here, we may be able to fill in for subs or anything else if we can get that. And I'll be honest with you, we have a lot of people that are very close to getting retired, so that's our only concern. We have a crew right now that is very, I say, excellent. They're on time, they do their job. Thank God they get the students to school. If we lose one of them, we're gonna have a little nightmare. Okay. Stop finder is an app for your phone. It's not required that the parents have this. But what this does, it will send you notices. If we have a bus that breaks down, I can notify and push that out to the app on the phone that will let you know that this bus may be 10, 15 minutes late because it broke down, or possibility there's a different accident that's stopping them. It will also notify the schools. It also, that's on the left, will tell you what time that normally the bus should be there. And then on the right, the red dot tells you that's where your student, your child is being picked up. It's I feel it's a very good app that we will be pushing out hopefully in a few months. But again, it's not required that everybody has it. And I think it's going to be a helpful tool for a lot of things that happen so we can notify the parents. Okay, issues. Issues that I have is the communication between the schools, because I think some people still don't realize that I am a tool that they can come to and get help. Okay, a lot of them do, but there's still certain things that need to be just ironed out a little bit, and that's what we're working on. The other issue is change is difficult for anyone. So this is a new product, this is new things we're trying to push out, new things that we've tried to do and get it underway. We're gonna need future drivers. And I just want to say that even though we use this product, me being my previous life designing software, that was my before I started here, came to the high school. You'll never have it at 100%, but you can get it close to 75 to 90 at least. You have students, right now, we set up a route, but then you have students that are now driving. You may have parents that move to a different location, and you've got many other variables that could happen. Any other questions?
Does that Stop Finder app, does that show you where the bus is live?
Not at this point. There is a way. Yes, there is. It's another portion of it, but I don't want to bring it all the way out.
Yeah.
And then people get panicked. Little steps.
Yes.
The communication from the radios, I mean, or communication for the school, do the bus drivers have cell phones that we're using currently?
You can use cell phones, but if you're on the road and driving,
Don't touch it. Okay,
so if something happens when they're driving, they can communicate easier with that.
gotcha.
Any other questions? Bo?
And how are the bus drivers viewing this? Is it like an iPad or a little
Not yet.
screen?
Not yet. You can have an iPad, that will show them the route there, so this will be very helpful for eventually. What we want to do is also, it will tell them, just like a GPS, saying you're going to pick up this student at such and such, so many miles and what time and stuff like that. But we're not there yet. Because that part's gonna cost us some money, so. We need to get chasing that. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, preliminary budget. It's going around, remember, this is the very, like, 10,000 foot view budget that we start with. Dial in closer as the months, as we move towards. And the vote.
Little goes around. Nancy, why are you sitting way over there?
There's a chair over here.
And so as a, reminder, the preliminary budget is looking at, basically where we stand with our current budget. So it's sort of like the jumping off point. When we start, building our budget for next year. So a reminder, and you all will be going through this, your individual schools as well. So that top portion is our estimated carryover. So we sort of have what we had budgeted, and then what the actual carryover may be. But of course, that's unaudited. So there's a lot of factors that play into, especially when you're looking at budget expenditures where you haven't even gone through the majority of the year yet, and you're trying to calculate where you're going to land. But in terms of our carryover, it's important to remember that we held out at sort of 100,000 as to make sure that we had a cushion because of various factors that may occur within the budget season. And currently, our carryover is healthy because of several factors, and those are listed on the right. $11,000 in interest that's from our checking account. Some money that's still in for curriculum development. We have within the superintendent's line in the business office. We haven't spent as much money in travel and other areas. There's also some changes in Blue Cross Blue Shield that were savings. If you remember, in technology, we had a person leave before the end of the year, so there's some more savings in that line because of that. And also there is some insurance savings in the special services line. We had the administrative assistant line covered position for a little while, but then that person had to leave, so there's savings there. And now I can't remember what carryover from the previous, I should know that. And then additional carryover from the previous year. So, we're sort of starting out in a place that's healthy, but of course, there's many things that can impact the budget. So we want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about any budget goals that we have moving into next year. And then just looking over the general accounts, mostly we're doing pretty good. We have areas within our occupational therapists, where we're a little over. We had to contract some services because we have someone who's out on leave for a little while, and usually those online services cost a little bit more, which we've found out with .com therapy. Though they're really good services, it costs a little bit more to run those. And then we've had some significant savings within Blue Cross Blue Shield. As you recall, we sort of set it at 10%. We came in at 6%, so that helps some. But there are also folks that sometimes switch to have Blue Cross Blue Shield, where they get the stipend in lieu of the benefit because their partner may have the benefit. And so we offer that, and that often changes. In terms of our reserves, you probably heard me say at your local meetings, our special ed reserve is capped at $750,000, and so we're at that cap. So you all in the sending schools are not putting any more money into it. So that money is there in the event there is a significant need within a school for particularly out of district placement. Of course, that process is you have to expend your own personal your school's reserve before you can tap into the district reserve. And then you can see the amounts that we have for our HRA, the deductible, and some of the monies within the curriculum coordination fund. And right now that's the $12 per student that we assess all the schools that provides for some of the curriculum work that we do throughout the year. And then below that, you can sort of see the CPI increases over the years, where I think last year we are at 8.7, and this year it's the 3.2 official.
Yes, it is the official one.
The official one. And so that's sort of where we're standing. Next month, we will bring sort of a draft budget to you all. And just so you know, some of the things that I have been thinking about are, and you need to be aware of, and in terms of our technology, when we restructured, one of those positions was still getting covered by some of the ESSER funds. So that position will be sort of fully within the budget this year. And, and taking a look at what it would look like. You all have heard from principals about support for HR. We've also heard about support around behavior and whether or not having somebody at the district level would be helpful to principals. But Melissa and I have been having meetings with some folks about that particular piece and whether that makes sense for us. And I'll be sending some information to principals next week about HR and their needs and whether that's something that would be impactful for them to be able to do their jobs. So those are sort of the three major areas if you're thinking about increases that I'm sort of thinking about, and I'll have more information about that when we do when we bring a draft.
Other questions? Okay. Moving on then to action items. These should be pretty checkbox items. I think approval of administrative review of district safety plan. This is an annual thing that we do. You have more you want to say about that?
Yeah, I'll just say, the principals at the beginning of the school year, they meet with their teams and they have a checklist that they go through to ensure the safety of the buildings in sort of that all hazards environment. So not only are you thinking about lockdowns and fires, you're thinking about the evacuations and other pieces and reviewing your plans with your team. And then they send me the sheet that sort of says that they've gone through that, and I have those from my teams. So they're good.
Yeah, is there a motion? So second, any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, that brings us to policy for second reading and approval of the animals in schools policy, which people may remember we discussed at the prior meeting. And then it went back to the policy committee and now it's back for approval. Is there a motion?
Move approval of policy IMG animals in schools.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay,
Yours is so exciting.
these are first and final reading policies because they're matters of law, so we don't have a lot of choices, and they deal with physical restraints, seclusions, and truancy. I think we could take them as a slate, but if you have questions, we can also take those. Do you have? Sure.
So I move approval of policies JKAA, JKAA-R, and JHB as a slate.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Is there any other business? Okay, future agenda items will certainly have the budget, and we'll have our standard updates and reports, and we'll have some, of course, some policies,
For November.
okay, is there any public comment? Okay, our next meeting will be Monday, 13th of November, 2023. Time probably stacked up for the high school for probably 6 or 6:30, but monitor your emails to find out for sure. Now, we're gonna have an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 40560 contract negotiations. So,
Second.
all in favor? Okay, we'll just give.